For this meeting has begun.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Target Discovery Series. Today we are extremely fortunate to have Janet Zeller from the U.S. Forest Service to talk about accessibility and our national forests, which is very appropriate for Great Outdoors Month, and I think you will learn a lot from this presentation. The Target Center has collaborated with Janet as the Forest Service National Accessibility Program Manager for years, and one of the initiatives that we worked on was getting assistive technology at Forest Service locations for visitors. So we know that Janet is committed and knowledgeable, and so we're very excited to have her here today. Before we turn things over to Janet, I just wanted to give you a quick lay of the land. My name is Paul Lloyd. I'm the Education Program Manager at the Target Center. I will be your moderator today, so anything that you submit to the Q&A in the bottom right-hand corner, if you're watching this live, that goes to me. I will try to handle it if it's technical in nature, or I will forward it to Janet if it's related to the content. And then at the end of her presentation, she will go through all of the questions, and I will actually read your questions out loud, and she will respond to them. So we will get to all relevant questions. If you are unable to use the chat area, or if you are watching the recording, you can email target-center@usda.gov, and you can use that email for any comments, suggestions, etc. In the bottom of your screen in the middle, there's a captions area. If you want, you can change the size, the font, just have it work for you. We also will have a transcript available, and you can actually download the transcript right from that pod if you want to. The web links area shows you some Target Center content, including our Target 365, which is where you can watch all past events, either watch video or watch webinars, download content from all of our past events. We also have a survey that will open up when we close this webinar, and then we'd love your feedback even if you're watching it later. And we recommend you put a request in if you have any services you need from Target Center through Start My Target Experience or visit our YouTube page. Finally, the PowerPoint will just move along on its own, but just so you know, Adobe Connect is accessible, and that link is there as well if you want to read up on Adobe Connect accessibility. So we'll leave that up for just a little bit, but then we're going to move it out of your way so you can focus on the wonderful presentation. Again, use the Q&A to submit any questions or email us later. And that gets all the intro out of the way, and I will turn things over to Janet.
Thank you, Paul, and welcome to all who are joining us. Well, summer's here. That means it's a great time to get out and enjoy the beauty of nature, the sights of wildlife, breathe some fresh air, relax, and recreate outdoors. Nature is waiting for you. The question is, what's out there that's accessible? We'll talk about all of those things. I'm Janet Zeller. As Paul said, I'm the National Accessibility Program Manager for the Forest Service. I'm located in Washington, D.C. I've been working in the field of accessibility since the mid-1980s and have been with the Forest Service since 1991. I manage the Forest Service Accessibility Program, so I'm the lead for the development and implementation of accessibility programs and policies for our agency. I also represent the Forest Service working on accessibility issues with partners, organizations, states, and other federal agencies too. And I instruct accessibility and universal design of programs and facilities at a wide range of training sessions nationally. This webinar will provide an overview of what's out there in the National Forest and some of the outdoor recreation opportunities available for you to enjoy on these public lands. The Forest Service established the federal accessibility standards for developed outdoor recreation areas, including camping units, picnic areas, scenic overlooks, and so forth. And the Forest Service now has more accessible recreation sites than any other agency or entity worldwide. And there are free lifetime access passes for individuals with disabilities that these provide free admission in some areas and reduced fees in many others. I'll also cover the how-tos of getting one of those access passes. We'll get going as soon as I cover some very important information about the accessibility of this webinar. The captioning, as you can see at the bottom of the page, it's being real-time captioned, open captioned today, as is required by the law. Also in accordance with the law is to ensure that any participants with limits to their vision will be aware of everything on the screen. I will read and describe key points on each of the slides, as well as provide a lot of additional information verbally. The national forests cover 193 million acres of the U.S. The green areas on this map show the locations of the national forest. And you'll see there's lots of green on that map. The Forest Service is, of course, within the Department of Agriculture, and the mission of the Forest Service is to care for the land for present and future generations and to provide opportunities for people on the land. The 155 national forests and grasslands are encompassed within those 193 million acres of incredible landscapes. Let's take a peek. The Forest Service manages those lands from Alaska with its glaciers and incredible mountain ranges, moose, bald eagles, and coastal waters, complete with whales part of the year. All the way across the lands stretching across the U.S. out to Puerto Rico. And the Yayunque rainforest there is also in the National Forest System. Going back across the country the other way, the land stretch from California, and that is California. In the formatting of these slides for the screen, it cut off a few letters and words here and there, but that is California. From their national forests, and there are quite a number in California, that have redwood trees and mountains and lakes, back across the country to New Hampshire and Maine with the White Mountain National Forest, and those mountains and rivers and waterfalls and more. And in between, there is so much that's in the National Forest System. There are the Red Rocks of Arizona on the Coconino National Forest, and the mountains in Colorado on the San Juan and on the White River National Forests. And here hikers on the Bridger-Teton National Forest in Wyoming. There are also the mountains on the Okanagan National Forest in Oregon, and there's the Flathead Lake on Flathead National Forest in Idaho, on across to the Black Hills National Forest of South Dakota, and down to the National Forest of Florida. Here are some of the great access to open water areas on national forests. Lake Michigan on the Huron-Manistee National Forest in the upper left-hand corner. The center photo is of the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness on the Superior National Forest in Minnesota. And in the lower right, the Atlantic Ocean shore in North Carolina on the Croatan National Forest. Now you've had just a glimpse of 15 of the 155 national forests. Just a taste of the wonderful places on national forests waiting for you to explore. There are 158,000 miles of trails on national forests. Many trails allow some motor vehicles, such as ATVs, and many are non-motorized, not allowing any motor vehicles, and that depends on the land and whether or not it can sustain the use of motor vehicles. So there are a variety of trail options out there ready for you to choose from. The forests also encompass thousands of lakes and rivers, including 101 designated as National Wild and Scenic Rivers, totaling close to 5,000 miles of rivers of all types, from quiet water with great fishing and paddling to whitewater and great rafting opportunities. There are 439 designated wilderness areas on national forests, covering more than 36 million acres of wild lands. And there are, that says, 33,000 Forest Service employees who manage these 193 million acres. They fight the wildland fires and do so much more to ensure that those forests are ready to welcome. So why is accessibility so important on these lands? Well, a lot of it's about the numbers. More than 57 million people in the U.S. have a disability, and that's the largest minority in the U.S. It crosses all ages, races, and genders, and this minority is increasing in size every year. A disability is legally defined as a substantial limitation of one or more of a person's major life activities, such as walking, seeing, hearing, breathing, thinking, and so forth. And here's an interesting thing to think about disabilities. 15% are obvious. That is, the person uses a wheelchair, crutches, cane, walker, has an obvious amputation, or something else you see at first glance. But that leaves 85% of people with disabilities that are unseen. A heart or breathing disorder that limits one's ability to walk, limits to their reach range due to arthritis, limited hearing or vision, learning, or thinking difficulties. The list is long. And keep in mind that people recreate with their families and friends. We know from the National Visitor Use Monitoring surveying we do on the national forests that 8% of the 150 million people who recreate each year on the national forests and grasslands self-identify that they have a disability. That is close to 12 million people with disabilities currently recreating on the national forests and grasslands. Add to that the fact that disability often comes with aging. The U.S. Census Bureau tells us that by the year 2030, over 80 million people will be over 65 here in the U.S. Keeping in mind that today 1 out of every 2 people over 65 has a disability, it's clear the aging population is going to be adding to the number of people who have disabilities. All of these are reasons why the Forest Service builds, or whatever we build or buy today, needs to be accessible for all people to meet the needs of our visitors now and into the future. All people are welcome on the national forests and grasslands, America's big backyard. It's where we all can go to play. And yes, the National Forest System lands are America's big backyard. Just as the backyard behind your house, if you have lots of land, you may have an area close to the house that has a patio with a picnic table and a grill, etc. There are some areas on national forests, usually those closer to big population areas, that have highly developed areas, like campgrounds with firm and stable surface that are perhaps even concrete. And of course, they have picnic tables and pedestal grills and so forth. Further out from your house, across the grass in your backyard, there might be a swing set, or that might be where the picnic table is located. It's a lot less developed further out there, no concrete, etc., but it's a place where you can pitch a tent, etc. This is what many of the Forest Service campgrounds are like, more rustic, less developed, but the ground is still firm and stable, and there are still other amenities, picnic tables, fire rings, etc. Now, you might have part of your backyard, maybe over by the garage, that's a little messy. You stack the wood there for the fireplace, etc. Well, national forests are working for us, managing the timber for its best long-term health, which means thinning and cutting timber in some areas of a forest, with those locations varying from year to year. And if your backyard is really big, you likely have a good deal of land that isn't even mowed. That's what the majority of the 193 million acres of the National Forest System lands are like. Those areas of the National Forest are, of course, more difficult to negotiate if you use a wheelchair or other mobility device. However, there are lots of people with disabilities who love those less developed areas where you can get away from the crowds, and they are willing to take assistance with them if they need to get out there in those beautiful areas. They plan ahead for successful trips. Some people enjoy what they call team hiking. They choose the most rugged trails they can find, and folks help each other get up the trail. Here's a team hike that has reached the summit of the second highest mountain in New England. The entire trail was steep and rugged, which is what they chose, why they selected that mountain challenge to conquer. Each person can choose the type of recreation they want and the setting for that recreation, from developed areas with campgrounds, etc., to these really rugged, undeveloped areas. It's the individual's choice. In addition to all these people reasons for facilities being accessible, there are also the laws that deal with accessibility. And here's a quick overview. First, since 1968, for 48 years, the Architectural Barriers Act has required all facilities designed, constructed, altered, rented, or leased by, for, or on behalf of a federal agency, and any new or altered facilities on federal lands are required to comply with the applicable accessibility guidelines and standards. In addition, under Section 504, each program must be open to all people, unless the participation by the person would require a change to the program that would fundamentally alter or change that program. And no person can be denied participation in a program on federal lands unless that person does not meet the essential eligibility requirements to participate in that program based on safety, which are applied to all potential participants. So when is a building or recreation site or unit considered to be accessible? Well, the legal definition of the term accessible is that it's in compliance with the most stringent federal or Forest Service accessibility guidelines in place at the time that facility or site or unit was constructed, altered, reconstructed, purchased, rented, or leased. Here's how that requirement works. When a facility or a constructed feature like a fire ring or a picnic table is constructed, or it's altered, or it's reconstructed, or it's replaced, or it's purchased, that facility or constructed feature must be brought into compliance with the most stringent federal or Forest Service guidelines in place at that time. Here are the accessibility standards and guidelines that apply to new or altered developed recreation sites and buildings on Forest Service lands. The goal of the Forest Service outdoor recreation guidelines and trail guidelines is to preserve the natural setting. That's why you pick the area to go to, while maximizing accessibility where it's possible to do that without changing the character of the setting. And this can get a little complicated, so we have to have a chart that lists the various standards that apply to each different type of facilities. And I know you can't read this chart. If you'd like a copy of it, you can just let me know, and I'd be glad to get it to you. As of last September, we don't have this year's totals yet, but as of last September, the National Forests have more than 25,000 campsites that comply with the accessibility standards and more than 8,000 recreation buildings, including visitor centers, shower buildings, toilet buildings, and more that comply with the accessibility requirements. As I said earlier, that's more accessible recreation sites and buildings than any other federal agency or entity worldwide, and they are waiting for you. Forest Service offices are required to be accessible for our employees and also to ensure we serve all visitors who go to those offices to gather information about where they want to recreate on that national forest. National Forest Visitor Centers come in all sizes, large and small. They are also designed to be accessible. So are the information counters inside those buildings. So if our employee has a disability or the visitor has a disability, they can work together easily. At exhibits, the clear floor space must also comply with the accessibility standards, as well as the operable parts, the things you have to manipulate with your hands. They have to comply with the reach range standards, so no higher than 48 inches to reach them from above the floor. And for exhibits, and as I mentioned, for operable controls, things that operate things, all of those interactive parts are to be operable with one closed fist without pinching, grasping, or twisting of the wrist, and with 5 pounds or less of force. There are scenic overlooks of all types across the Forest Service, whether you're in a developed area in the mountains, by the water, or in a great nature viewing area. There may be an overlook area nearby. And our recreation facilities are also required to be accessible when they are constructed or altered. Here are some fishing piers, toilet buildings, a picnic shelter, and a group fire ring, for examples. There's a wide range of types of accessible picnic areas. Here we see 2 examples in highly developed areas with lots of concrete, and 2 examples in the woods, in more natural areas. All are still accessible. Campgrounds on national forests tend to be less developed, as we talked about earlier. Less concrete, fewer electrified campsites, and so forth than do commercial campgrounds have, but still accessible. At a campground, there are many types of constructed features like fire rings, pedestal grills, and of course picnic tables. There are specific accessibility requirements for each of those. And they come in lots of different styles, but all are required to comply when they are constructed or when they are altered. Now, we still have lots of Forest Service areas that have not come into compliance yet. As they are reconstructed and as they are altered, they are brought into compliance. For example, to various types of accessibility, there are many styles of great-looking and accessible picnic tables. There are just 4 examples on this slide. Many more types also. Now, to learn more about the recreation opportunities on national forests or grasslands near you, go to the Forest Service website at this web address, fs.fed.us. There you can select your state from the pull-down menu, which is that top white box to the right, and then after you put that state in, then click the Go button, and the names of all the national forests and grasslands in that state will pop up. You can check the states around you as well. And select that forest or grassland that you'd like to know more about and bring that up. Now, if you know the name of the national forest you want to visit, then you can select that name from the pull-down menu in the second white box there. Press the Go button, and the home page of that forest or grassland will open up. And this is what the home pages look like. Over on that left-hand column, you'll see the word recreation. If you click on that, you will find lots of information about the recreation opportunities available on that Forest Service unit. If you have additional questions and you'd like to talk with somebody about that, further down on that left-hand column, you will find the contact information, email contact, and also phone numbers for that Forest Service unit. Now, when you're ready to make a reservation, go to this site, recreation.gov. On recreation.gov, you can make a reservation for all types of activities on federally managed land, even tours for the Washington Monument. They cover them all. So get to know recreation.gov. It can be a big help to you as you travel anywhere. If it's a campground reservation you're looking for, in the search bar, which is that white bar, just type in what you're looking for. For example, campground reservations. It will allow you then, after you click the search, it'll bring you to the reservations page, and it will allow you to narrow your search down by your arrival and departure dates, the state, the agency. You can put in Forest Service if you'd like, and you can check a box that gives you the choice if you're looking for accessibility, and also the type of site you want for a tent, trailer, RV, or so forth. The site will in turn show you all the camping units that meet all of those requirements that are available to reserve that night at that particular campground. You can complete the whole reservation process right there online. As you're completing your payment for your campsite, the website will ask if you have an access pass. With it, you might be able to get as much as a 50% discount on some fees. So let's talk about passes. There are 3 types of interagency passes. There's the America the Beautiful pass that can be purchased by anyone for $80 a year, and it provides some discounts at some federal recreation areas. There's a senior pass for those over 62 that must show a proof of age, residence, etc. And then there's the Access Pass. It's a free lifetime issuance to a person who's a U.S. resident who has a disability and who shows one of 3 types of documentation that the person has been medically determined to have a permanent disability that limits one or more of the person's major life activities. If you have a disability, you can get an access pass by going in person and taking your proper documentation with you to a federal recreation office that issues an access pass. Now, you can find out where those are by going to the website on the screen and checking the site locations area on that website. It will tell you the places near you where you can get it. Or you can complete the form on that website and then mail it with a copy of your proper documents to the address that's also listed on the form. And for that, you have to enclose a $10 processing fee. Otherwise, if you go in person, it is free. So, what's the proper documentation we're talking about? Well, there are 3 types. You only have to show one of these 3 types, either a statement, a signed statement by a licensed physician, a document issued by a federal agency or by a state agency, stating that you, with your name on it, from a doctor, it would be a statement signed by that licensed physician, and the note is to state that you have a permanent physical, mental, or sensory impairment that substantially limits one or more of your life activities. This document does not have to state the nature of your disability. That is confidential medical information and not to be on this. Or you could have a document issued by a federal agency, such as from the Veterans Administration, which states your name and that you have been medically determined to be eligible to receive federal benefits as a result of your disability. Now, this eligibility letter that as a veteran you would have received summarizes the benefits that the veteran's receiving, and the letter or card must show your name and indicate that you've been determined to have any % of disability. That documentation is acceptable as your proof for your access pass. Or the document could be one that simply states your % of disability. A veteran with any % of VA-recognized disability is eligible for an access pass. Now, if you plan to show this document, make a copy of your award document and then black out your monthly entitlement amounts, because the amount of the award you receive is your own confidential information, nobody else's. Or another type of document could be used to meet the requirements would be the proof of receipt of Social Security disability income or supplemental security income due to a disability. If you receive either of those, show a copy of a letter or other document you receive from Social Security that states your name and that you're entitled to receive either SSI or SSDI. Now, if you plan to show this document, you can make a copy of your document, then black out the monthly amounts that you would be receiving, because that amount of reward is your own confidential information. Now, what is not accepted as proof are these parking placards that are issued by state motor vehicle department, because in most states the parking placards don't identify the person to whom the parking placard was issued. The hang tags have only an issuing number and usually the date when it expires. So, to wrap up, here's a summary of all of those websites that I mentioned so that you can copy them down while we move ahead with your questions. The first website is the Forest Service website, where you're going to go to look for by state or by the name of the forest, and then look for the recreation types that you're going to find what's going to be going on that forest. The second is where you make your reservations, and the third is where you get your information about the access pass. And with that, Paul, let's go to questions.
Okay, let's give everybody just a second, see if any questions come in. I did have one come in while you were talking, and they just were hoping, and I think this link might be actually on the screen, but if you can just one more time read out loud to them the website for Access Passes.
Okay, that's the long one.
Okay.
And that one is www.store, S-T-O-R-E, dot USGS dot G-O-V, gov, / the line leaning forward, PASS, just passed, and then that forward line, / access, ACCESS, and then it's dot HTML. That is store.usgs.gov, G-O-V, / pass, / access dot HTML.
Okay, great.
Good.
Anybody else that has any questions, please let us know. We do apologize that for a little bit there the captions stopped working. When we post this recording, what we will do is post it with the full captions, so no problem there. We'll get that same information out to you, but again, while Janet was doing a good job presenting, I was reaching out to the captioning company, etc., when we got that resolved. But we did have a period without it. So.
Oh, dear. I didn't notice, or I would have stopped presenting.
Yeah.
I really do apologize on that. Let's see. What else could I tell folks while we are waiting?
Yeah, last questions while she's doing that.
Yes. Please continue to ask. I'm just filling a little time so we don't hang up on you too soon. Let's see. We are constantly working to improve our recreation accessibility. Every time something is constructed or reconstructed, or we purchase a new fire ring or picnic table, the direction is that it will be accessible. We do have an awful lot of recreation sites, and so it's taking some time to get through them all. But there is a strong commitment from the agency, and there has been for 23 years, that what we build and what we put out there will be accessible, and it's paying off. Let's see, what else? Paul, can you think of anything that we might want to talk further about?
Well, one question that did come in, just a small one, asking if senior passes are free.
Pardon, the senior passes?
Yeah, asking if senior passes are free.
I'm trying to remember, and I'm not entirely sure. If there is a charge, it's a very minimal charge. But I tend to think they are. But again, you do have to be of that age. You have to show your proof of residence, your proof of age, etc. And you can learn more about it on that same website, because you'll see all the details about each of the passes on that store USGS.gov website.
Okay, well, I didn't see anything else come in, but so I'll ask you your final question. And if I missed it when I was trying to scramble with the captions, I apologize. But I'm sure you've done a wonderful job making everything accessible. But as we saw with this webinar, sometimes things can briefly go wrong. So if you are at one of these locations and you have a concern with accessibility, what should you do?
You should very much bring it to the recognition of that forest. They want to know if things aren't as they should be. Now, before you go, because as I say, not all of our sites are accessible yet, that's why we really do want you to check. Check on the Forest Service website. And the other great way to screen through is when you make your reservation. You can put in there that you need accessibility, and that way you will know that you're getting a site that's going to best match your needs. Now, if you get there and it was advertised as accessible and you find it is not, wow, do we really need to know about that urgently so that that can be immediately remedied. Something may have broken, something may have been put in a site that should not have been there, that sort of thing. They do happen. We have lots of things going on out there and lots of people using those sites. So we do want to know about it. I don't know if folks remember way back on that first slide, and Paul, if you might type it in on the Q&A page, and that's my email. I'm also glad to hear from anyone. Thank you. There it is at the bottom. It's J. Zeller, Z-E-L-L-E-R, at FS for Forest Service, .fed for federal, .us. That's J. Zeller at fs.fed.us. And I am glad to hear from anyone at any time. If you have any issues, feel free to contact me. But I'll tell you, the first people who are going to want to know are the people right there on that forest. Very often we have a campground host, unless it's a very, very small six camping unit sort of roadside area. But most campgrounds have a host who's a volunteer, but they know what's going on in the campground, and you let them know if there's a problem, and they will ensure that the Forest Service finds out about that problem and sees to getting that taken care of. In other areas, they are run by a concessionaire, which is a company under contract from the Forest Service, and they would very much need to know if there was some problem, and so you let those people know. Now, as far as the Access Pass goes, it's a very good thing to look at that website, and can we pop back to that one, Paul?
Which one is that?
The one that we had up on the screen. I believe it is slide 59.
Community.
And wanted to remind folks of that USGS website again. That website will also show you all the ways in which the Access Pass, whoop, you went too far. Back up. There you go. The Access Pass, that's it. The Access Pass can be used. There are some areas it does not apply. And so it's important for you to know that before you go out there. And then you'll know where you can use it and where you can't, and where you won't be disappointed that you can't use it at that particular site. Any other thoughts that you have of something we might be able to share, Paul?
No, I think that's good. That covered it. I'm just making sure there's no other questions. Now, people are going to ask for the PowerPoint, so you're okay if we share that with people?
I have some extra things on the end there. Let me send you a clean version. That's exactly what I just showed.
Okay.
And I would be glad to have that go out. Just a reminder to folks that, of course, what you get won't have all the extra comments that I made. So it could be a little confusing with just the slides, but certainly folks are welcome to them, and they have great pictures.
All right. Well, it sounds like that wraps things up. No more questions. Again, if you're watching this recording, you can use email either to the Target Center or question directly for Janet for more information. We appreciate you taking your time today. It's very informative. I think this really helps round out what we put out there for Great Outdoors Month. It's important that everybody that wants to can get outdoors and enjoy our great country, and these are great locations to do that, and to have those accessible options is even better. So we thank you for that. We thank you guys for attending, and we really would appreciate it if, as I close this out, if the survey pops up, you provide some feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.